Okay, welcome to this App Advisory Plus App Insights webinar. I'm Rowan Van Tromp and I'm Operations Manager here at App Advisory Plus. And I'm delighted to be joined by Ash Beatson, Founder and Director at nettTracker. nettTracker provides an automated fixed asset register for QuickBooks Online. Thanks for joining us, Ash.
Thanks, Rowan. Yes, great to be here.
I'm really interested to start with just to find out a little bit more about what the driver was for nettTracker to get involved with App Advisory Plus. Do you think you could just give us a brief synopsis of your thoughts behind your getting involved?
Well, we're a pretty new app, and I just thought it was a fantastic way for us to be able to help market our app and get it out to more people. And also because I know that you've got additional expertise that can help test the app, and it's very impartial as well. So I was keen to get it, to try to get it out to as many people as possible.
Brilliant. Well, we can definitely help you with that. And obviously, we hope that lots of people are going to view this webinar. So it's a really good opportunity for those to get acquainted with nettTracker who aren't already. So in the webinar, what we're going to do is start with I'll give a brief introduction to App Advisory Plus, and then I'll hand over to you to give us a really good demo of how nettTracker works, and you can explain the kind of problems that the app is solving. So just to start with the introduction to App Advisory Plus, we're a platform that supports accountants and bookkeepers in delivering profitable app advisory services. And we do that in 3 different ways. Firstly, we have an app stack builder, and that helps you to find the right combinations of apps for your clients across a wide range of sectors. Secondly, we have a software agnostic independent directory of apps that has key information about apps with integration details, videos, reviews, and our directory has more search categories, more sector options, more filters, and more sort options than the Xero and Intuit app marketplaces. And to complement these, we also have app support channels, and these are a knowledge base of information of apps. We present that in a standardized structure to help people find the information that they're looking for. And inside that, we've also got key information on how the apps integrate with the platforms that they work with. We've also got a community of accounting and bookkeeping professionals for discussing app-related questions, and that has a search function so you can find answers to questions people already asked. And if you still can't find the answer you're looking for, we also have a specialist app support service, so you can ask questions to one of us via a help desk service. So that's enough about App Advisory Plus. I'm really keen to get involved in what nettTracker has to offer. So if I now hand over to Ash, we'll go into a demo of nettTracker.
Now, just before anyone gets started with trying to connect nettTracker, it's a very good idea that you've just got the chart of accounts in place that you need within QuickBooks Online. And just as a very quick example, if you've got computer equipment as an asset group in your fixed asset register, then what you should have on your balance sheet is a asset group called computer equipment. And below that, you will have your year-to-date purchases, your year-to-date depreciation. Then you've got your cost within your year, your disposals in your year. So you should have all these set up, and this will make the integration so much easier when you're trying to connect nettTracker. Now, this is a UK version. If you were looking at this from outside the UK with regards to your asset types, your balance sheet types, then you will have tangible assets, fixed assets, property, plant and equipment, depending on what region you're looking at. And in addition to those balance sheet codes, what you should also have is a couple of profit and loss codes, one for the depreciation, or you can have multiple if you want to have one for each of those asset types, but at least one to track your depreciation cost in your profit and loss. And if you dispose of any assets, then you should have a gain or loss on the disposal of those fixed assets. Now, just before I actually go into nettTracker itself, if I take a very quick look at a balance sheet, so this is a sample QuickBooks balance sheet, And I can see from this file, as of 31st of December 2017, I've got some values within plant and machinery and computer equipment, motor vehicles. And what I want to do is, starting from 1st of January 2018, is start setting up my QuickBooks on my nettTracker fixed asset register, so we can, moving forward, we can get everything nicely automated for us. So what I'll do, just to begin with, is get myself into my nettTracker file. So just give me a second while I come and get that in.
So this is just picking up on what you've gone through previously there. This is an app which is applicable to not just the UK. This is US, Australia, India, anywhere with a QuickBooks, license.
That's right, Rowan. So pretty much anywhere in the world, they should be able to use this app. So what I want to do first of all is I've logged into my nettTracker file now. So you can use this either as the accountant. So I'm logging in as an accountant, and so I'll have multiple clients on my list. But if I just want to use it as the end user, as the business, then I'll just have the one that I'll always be operating on. Now, what I want to do, because I have an account, is I want to actually go and create another company. So I'm going to create a new nettTracker company to connect. So I've got a subscription in place. I'll select that subscription. So I want to get this connected to QuickBooks. So just take a second or two. So this is completely live. So I'll just look for my company. So Apps Advisory Plus company we're using. I'll get this connected. And what this will do, once I've gone through the authorization, it will start bringing through some information from my QuickBooks company file. So I can see that the names come through. I can see that the currency is coming through. Now, what it's doing is it's detecting the first month of the financial year. Now, I don't want to start this fixed asset register from January 2020. For this example, what I actually want to do is run this from January 2018. So I'll run from January 18, and I should be running to 31st of December 18. So let me just select that and get it into place. So the limit is 12 months. So you can have a shorter period if you wanted to, but the limit is a 12-month period. Now below that, I can choose some automation. So once I've got going, I can automatically create my depreciation journals. I can automatically refresh the link between QuickBooks Online and nettTracker. So usually sort of once a week, there'll be a refresh that will start to detect any new purchases. And on those purchases, if I want to automatically add those new purchases to the register, I can do, but I might set myself a limit just to make sure that I don't just add anything, any accidental purchase for sort of fuel for motor expenses that have gone to motor vehicles by mistake. So anything over 500 should get added. And I can also choose a default write-off. So when the depreciation has been calculated and the net value of an asset is sort of less than £10, then it will just clear off that. And if I want to, I can use the class feature. So when my journals are created, it will also detect the class and post those. So I'll just create that company. So what's happening now, it's starting to detect more information from my QuickBooks company file, the nominal groups. So I'm working through a wizard. I've already completed step 1 in basic information, and I'll work through this wizard until we've got everything complete. Now, it doesn't take that long, as we should see. So the next step, depreciation rules. So I've got some default depreciation rules. These are all available to me. I can add further depreciation rules if I need to. And I can also choose to make one of these a default. So I'll just choose this 3-year straight line in this instance. So I'll just go next from here. I've got some default asset groups, so I don't have to use every single one of these. So what I will do is actually delete a few of these until I've just got a 3 left which I want to use. So I've got computer equipment, motor vehicles, and this particular one that's on my spreadsheet is machinery and equipment. And I must make sure I spell these correctly, otherwise I'll have a problem when I try to import these records. Now, against each of my asset groups, I can set a default depreciation rule, so a further one. So if I don't have to use this, I can just use the standard default. I'll just choose any of these just for speed. There we go. So I've got my asset groups. I can create further ones. I can delete them. I'll save what we have so far. So now what I need to do is I need to map across those asset groups that I've just created to my chart of account codes that are in QuickBooks Online. So the step one is, so when I purchase a new asset, I want to detect the cost in the year. So for computer equipment, costs in the year, this will go to computer equipment. For machinery and equipment, cost in the year, to machinery and equipment. And for my motor vehicles, cost in the year. So what this will do is if I purchase any of these types of equipment in QuickBooks, nettTracker is going to be monitoring these chart of account codes for costs in the year. I'll just click next to take me to the next step. Within the year, when we calculate depreciation, we'll need to put some journals in. So for each of those asset groups, I have depreciation in the year, which goes to, again, computer equipment. I have for my machinery, I have depreciation in the year, which is for my machinery and equipment. And for my motor vehicles, I have depreciation in the year. Now, for each of these asset groups, I can either have a separate depreciation profit and loss code, or I could have a single. And I just have a single. I can also search for my codes at the top here. So if I start searching for depreciation, profit and loss, I am using that code, so I shall select it so it's in place, but it's not going to a particular asset group. I'm actually using it for all of them. So I'll just click next to take me to this next step of my mapping, so I can see that purchases in the year for each of those asset groups, and when the depreciation is calculated and the journals are posted, these are the accounts that will be debited each month, and these are the accounts that are going to be credited each month in the balance sheet. So I can here save my mappings and finish. That takes through. Now there's some other options that I can actually map across. I can skip this part, but if I have the accounts in place, then I might as well get them mapped. So for my disposals, again, the cost of those disposals, computer equipment, the machinery, disposal cost. Make sure I put the correct asset group. And for my motor vehicles, disposal cost. And you should see, in fact, that the more asset accounts we're selecting, they have been removed. They're no longer visible in this list. So the depreciation that I've currently used is now not available in this list for me to try and use again. So I've got disposal cost against each of those asset groups. And again, for the depreciation, I've got my disposals, computer equipment, machinery and equipment, and motor vehicles. And then for the disposal cost, I'm using that with any of my asset groups there. So I'll just take me to the next step. Again, I can just double check the mappings are in place. the profit and loss accounts, the cost for the disposals, the depreciation for the disposals, and I'll save that mapping and finish. And the final bit of mapping is that if I want to make my life even easier, so at the end of the financial year, all of my in-year transactions can get journaled across to become part of my brought forward balances, then I can make sure that's in place. So I've got the cost brought forward for computers, the cost brought forward for machinery and for motors. So again, I'll just check that mapping on the right hand side, machinery, motors. Take me next to the next step, where for the depreciation in year, we'll go part of the brought forward depreciation. And I can then just make sure again that I get it the right way around, would help.
And this is happening automatically at the end of the year. So once you've set up these end of year mappings, as soon as you hit the year end, it will automatically post these journals.
All of the journal entries that they want. So the thing that takes up the most time is going to be this setup process. And pretty much once we've completed this setup process, you will hardly ever really need to touch this app, because the idea is once you set it up, it does everything that you need. And then once a year, you'll come back in here and just review what it is that you need to just double check, anything that needs to be disposed, etc. Again, I can check my mappings for each of the asset groups, machinery. If I've made a mistake, I can sort of go back, but that looks good. I'll save those mappings and finish. And what I can do here is I can choose to import my assets, but I'm actually going to skip this part just to show that we can come back and do this, because sometimes you might not have the spreadsheet in place. So there is a sort of sample that I can download. I can download a sample template. I'm going to bring this up onto the screen in a moment. But when you download that template, you might not have the time to automatically upload it. So we can skip it and come back to it. So if I choose to skip, which I will do, and I can do a little refresh. So to refresh all the data. So what I can see now is that I've got a balance in QuickBooks. So from my QuickBooks balance sheet, I've got £81,044 of fixed assets on my balance sheet. I've got nothing currently within nettTracker. If I go to view my assets, so if I go to view assets, I've got nothing there at the moment. I've got machinery and equipment. So these are the asset groups that I've created, but I've not actually imported any assets. Now, what I will do is, give me a second, I'll just fire up bring the spreadsheet into view. Okay, I'll bring that through into view in a second. Now, through the wizard, I could have downloaded the template to import the assets, but if I skip that process, I've also got the ability to repeat that by going into import assets, where I can choose the file, which I already have, or first of all, download the template. Now, when I choose to download the template, what I will have, if I just bring this into view, is this template here, but without the assets on, basically. So these are the assets that I'm going to import. You'll have a template which will show you the instructions at the top of the screen, what it is that you need to do. So don't actually remove the instructions from the top. So leave everything in place. There'll be one sample line, so I can see that I've got computer equipment, and I've got the cost brought forward from December 17 and the depreciation that was calculated to that point. So I've got my asset groups, motor vehicles, machinery and equipment. And this is when it's important, actually, before you import, to make sure that these are spelt the same as the asset groups. So computer equipment, machinery and equipment. If I just minimize that a second. So I can just double check my spellings, machinery and equipment, computer and equipment. So if I put an ampersand instead of the word and, I'm going to have problems actually importing. So checking that these are the same spellings, which they should be. So I'll just come back into full screen. So if I choose to try to import those assets, so let's do the import again. So I'll choose the file and look for my assets to import. So all of the assets on my spreadsheet are now on the list. I can see that they all look good. Should be able to complete that import now. So once you do this, you can't this isn't not reversible. So double check really before you import this. You should, total up, double check your values, your balance sheet, and then once you're happy, then proceed. So I'll proceed with the import. And now I've imported those assets. What I can see there is my brought forward costs and my depreciation for each of the assets. And if I just come back to my dashboard, what I've got is a summary total of my assets, and they are all now agreed to my balance sheet. So this is perfect. This is exactly what I want now. Now, because I have started this off from January 18, I've got some depreciation that will need some depreciation posting. So if I were to choose to look at my asset processing, I can see I've got a forecast of the depreciation for every asset that was running through this financial year. Now, before I actually do process that, I might need to check if I've actually got some further purchases within my QuickBooks file. I'll just come back into my QuickBooks Online account. Now, if I'm looking at this, this is to December 2017. I'm just going to change this now and to run this to 2018, so I can run the report. So what I'll see that there are some costs in the year, £1,200. If I were to just double check my report tools, so this is something that you might need to do within QuickBooks. If I were to look at my report options, and I'll change this now to 2018. Just come out of this, come back into my nettTracker file. If I check my dashboard, I'll see that my external book value for my balance sheet is now 92,000. Now, that means that there are purchases that need to be added to my asset register. So what I'll have to do is review my transactions, and I can see that there are 2 purchases in a status of pending. So what I can do from here is I can add these to my asset register. Now, I can automatically get nettTracker to add those. I'm going to create them manually from here. There's not a lot I can change here because the information is coming through from my QuickBooks file. So I'll just click OK to get these added and create the transaction.
And the ignore there, that is what you'd use, obviously, if there's something that shouldn't have been in there.
That's right. So they've been processed. So I've put them into, so exactly right, Rowan. So if someone had posted, some fuel or anything else, which is not really an asset, I could have ignored it and it will go into this ignored tab.
Yeah.
Where what I should then do is go back to my QuickBooks company file and reclassify it, put it to the appropriate category. Otherwise, I'll have an imbalance between the balance sheet and the asset register. Or yeah. So now I've added those. If I just take a look back to my dashboard, I'll find that my asset register is perfectly in line with the balance sheet as it should be. If I view all, what I'll see if I come down a little bit. So it's computer equipment, and I've got some additions in the year. So just go back to my dashboard and look at the processing. So we can see that these are the, again, the forecasts, because this was purchased part of the way through the year. The depreciation is not kicking in until a later time. What I will do is just process this depreciation. Now, in fact, I am going to process this for the entire year. So you can do it for 1 month, but I'm actually going to do from here. I'm going to just change that. So we've got a year's worth that will go through. And although I'm doing it manually here, this is something that would just happen automatically every single month once you've got it set up.
This is just because we haven't processed any yet, basically.
That's right, yeah. So I'll just get that processed.
And I really like this view here. This is obviously something that you don't really get in QuickBooks itself. It's the view of all of the assets like this.
Yeah, and this has taken a second or two because I've basically now created a journal for every asset group for the entire year. Now, if I take a look at my assets, so I've got the depreciation that's been calculated in this current year. And if I take a look at my QuickBooks file, so let me just come back to my reports. So we've got the cost within the year, and we've got the depreciation that's been calculated now within the current year for these assets. And if I take a look, now if I also just come into my reports and just look at the profit and loss for December 18, or January to December 18, and run the report. So there's my depreciation for the entire year. So there are I've got journal entries for every asset group. If I open up one of these journals, so not for every asset, for each asset group. So I'll just open this up. So I can see that's going there through for each of those groups that have the assets calculated, and also for each of the classes going through as well, because I imported some of those assets with a class on them. And if
everything looks as you'd expect that.
Yeah. So if I just come back to the report, and again, what's nice now is that you're going to have monthly depreciation adjustments all throughout the year, and not just one annual end of year adjustment.
So this is useful for people that are doing monthly reporting, really, and their clients want to see this depreciation.
Yeah, absolutely. So that, I mean, really, that's a sort of like a secondary benefit, really, because as I really produced or thought of this app for the accountants to essentially help them with their end of year. So although it's taken us a few minutes to get this sort of set up and running, what I should actually find is that if I so I'm only interested in doing the year-end stuff. So what I want to do as the accountant, I review the balance sheet, see what's actually happened, log into nettTracker, Take a look at the dashboard, which should, everything should agree. So as of December 18, I've got my balance sheet, everything's in line. I can review the assets. I can see what's gone through. If there's nothing that needs changing, then if I'll just come back to this dashboard, I can go straight into the year end. So if I do a year end process, I can start the end of the year, complete the year end process. So what it's doing is doing a little double check, seeing if there are any transactions that have not had depreciation calculated. Are there any outstanding assets? Everything looks good. I can complete the end of year, but before I do that, I can choose to change the depreciation rule moving forward. I can adjust some of the balances if I wanted to write off a balance. So at the moment, I've got £68.96 outstanding. If I wanted to write that off, I can do so using the adjustment. But I'll just carry on and complete the end of year. So if there are any further journals to put through, it would do that. And now at the same time, I want to put my end of year journals through. So let me just complete this year end process. So now what I have is a new forecast for 2019. If I come back to my assets, I've got my asset register, which is running January to December 2019. If I want to look at the previous asset register, I can just choose to select those there. So I can look at the previous asset register at any time. Now, if I take a look at my QuickBooks company file now and come back to my balance sheet, if I run this as of that's 010119. So if I run the balance sheet as of January 2019, I'll see my brought forward. If I select to compare this to the previous period, which is going to be December 18, just run that report. So I'll have my, whatever was in my brought forward and in year, everything is now in brought forward. So every journal that I need to do as an accountant has now actually been done for me. So the process of actually monitoring fixed assets and doing all of the depreciation, every single journal that's required at the end of year should be less than a 5-minute job, really. The only thing that takes any time is just actually reviewing the assets.
So that's probably taken us around 20 minutes, I'd say, the actual setup there. So what we're saying is we can do the setup probably in a quicker time that it takes us to actually do the depreciation itself. Typically people will be using spreadsheets, and for the cost, I think if you're looking at your premium package there, it's five companies, £10 a month, so £2 a month a company, to get everything done that we need to do for the depreciation. And that seems like quite a sensible option for me.
Yeah, that's right. And if it's an accountancy firm that has, usually an accountancy firm has got a considerable amount of clients sometimes. So if they've got, well over 50 on QuickBooks Online, and if they, wanted to attach everyone, just to speed up their year-end process, and that's only going to cost them, the equivalent of £6 a year
Yeah.
for an asset register for one of those. So that's going to, the thing that will take up the time is the initial setup. So it's taken me not very long because obviously I'm very familiar with QuickBooks and nettTracker, because we made it. So I'd expect someone, it might, for the very first time, it might take them 45 minutes, maybe an hour, but only because they might not be familiar, or they've not actually got the spreadsheet set up. But once you've done it, then there's really no time for future years. It should be automatic.
And obviously, if you're setting up a company from scratch, you've got it straight away in there. So would we need to go through a similar amount? We wouldn't need to import any assets. We just kind of hook it up, and it would bring in the new data as it comes in.
That's right, absolutely. Yeah. The only thing, just to double check, is to make sure that you've got those chart of account codes set up correctly. But even if you have every single one set up, so if I just try to come back into nettTracker, so within my settings, if I wanted at any time, so if I can add further asset groups, so if I only had originally set up computer equipment, but now I wanted to add plant and machinery, I could create an extra asset group. And then I can also go through that process of mapping those accounts. So whatever we went through in the wizard, mapping the transactions for the cost and the depreciation in the year. So that's mandatory. But if I skipped the disposal journal mappings and the end of year mappings, I can come back and put those in later on.
So would you recommend that people just do this transition as the year ends come up, if they're moving their clients over, or do you think it's best to kind of just do it all in one hit?
So probably as an accounting firm, I would probably look to just do it, as you're about to prepare a set of accounts, then maybe do it then. Or it depends what available time you have. So if you're just about to create some accounts at the end of the year and you've got last year's accounts there, then I can always start creating a nettTracker file now.
And would you say that you would have one specialist in the team do this? It seems more sensible to me if someone's got to learn how to do it, there's a specialist and then they set up, or would you say actually it makes more sense that all of the client managers kind of aware of how to use it and they do their own?
I'd probably say that within an accounting firm, really, the client manager or whoever's responsible for sort of doing the preparation of the accounts would probably set it up. We've got a user guide available. So I always recommend, as soon as someone signs up, the user guide gets emailed out at the moment because it's not available as a download from within the software. What I should find throughout the software are other help options. So if I do click on help, I can go through help with and support. If I just click help with this page, that's not a very good example because I've not got a link on that particular page. But if I went to assets and looked at help with this page, then what I'll see is a little bit of a help documentation within there. And there's also video guides within other places as well.
Brilliant. It all looks fairly straightforward to get going with it.
There's also, if you need to dispose of assets, there's a disposal routine which creates all of the journals for you. If an asset has been purchased in the current year and added to the asset register by mistake, then there will be another option there just to delete the asset and reverse any journals that have been created for it.
Sounds like you've thought of every eventuality.
I've tried to, because I've tried to think what what would happen if I just put it on a spreadsheet, then I would just delete that line. So I've had to sort of think of it in the same way, basically. And I've had to, and I've, as an, someone that's worked in accounting practice, I've thought of it as what does an accountant want. So it should fit the needs of all accountants, really. It was basically, built for accountants, and the fact that small businesses also, can use it is just as an extra sort of option, really.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking us through that demo. That's been really insightful, really useful. I'm sure people find that interesting.
Yeah, that's a pleasure, Rowan. Yeah, no, thanks for having me on.
So in terms of the key takeaways that we're getting from this is, you can automate your fixed asset register. It's obviously going to save you time and increase the accuracy of the data. And really, for the price that is really reasonable, it's kind of a no-brainer to take up if you're using QuickBooks Online.
Absolutely, it should be. If I pop to my, if I actually come back into the website, so if I just pop out a full screen here, and I'll just, if I do go to the website, which is www.nettTracker.com. So all of the pricing is available there on the, within the pricing tab of our website. And all accounting firms, if they contact us, we'll give them one company for free to actually use, as they choose, whether it's for their accounting firm, whether it's they want to use that one file for one of their clients, then that's entirely up to them. And then say moving forward, you've got the £10 a month premium one, which is 5 companies, so that's basically £2 a month a company. When you move up to £25 a month, and that's 50p a month for a company. So there's quite a difference. And if you want to go all out and you've got a large firm, then we'll, there's an unlimited option, basically.
Awesome.
And they're all, so there's no limit on any of the assets and no limit on the number of users. So within every accounting firm, when they're logged in, they've got the ability through their company settings, once they've created one company file, they can go and choose, and they can add the users, which will be able to either view that file or go on and create other nettTracker companies themselves.
And it's pretty easy to switch between companies, presumably.
That's right. So once I'm in here and I'm looking at my particular file, I can go back to my account, I go to view companies, where I can change the list view. So I can go into any one of those or search for a company at the top. And search for
is there any ability to kind of restrict who can view which company?
Yes, so when you do actually add a user, you can choose, similar to QuickBooks actually, whether they will be looking at all of the client files or, just a specific one. So you can invite your client, if you like, to view their own asset register.
Brilliant. All right. Thanks for joining us today on the webinar.
No, yeah, that's a pleasure, Rowan. Sorry.